out there and like going, wow, how come that didn't like turn into like the offshoot of LA?
Really?
The weather's like more perfect, right?
Yes, definitely.
So I have no idea, except for maybe because it's too close to Tijuana.
Oh yeah, that's probably why.
It's too close to Tijuana.
Dangerous.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Okay. Are we ready? Creating Angels, class 11. I hope I'm not too close for the camera. Okay, good. All right, everybody there? Does everybody have sheets?
Sheets.
We are on class 11. We're in the top of page 9.
Yes.
And we discussed last week, of course, what the Baal Shem Tov does bring down, that he learns from the first fruits, that a person who has an orchard of fruits of one of the 7 special species of the land of Israel, as soon as the first fruits is starting to ripen, he sees the first budding, he has to tie a ribbon around it, right, and wait for it to ripen, and then when it ripens, he gathers all those fruits, puts it in a very special basket, and they do the whole village goes and does an unbelievable procession through the streets of Jerusalem, fanfare, everybody comes out of their shops. Every single day this happens, right? From Passover to Shavuot. And they bring these first fruits and they make a declaration in front of the priest and this offering of the very first fruits that they dedicate to God. And the question is, why are we doing the very first and why not just the best? Right? You have to give Meiser, so why not just have the best of the fruits that you're going to give to God? Why the first? So this is, the firsts are very important. Okay? Firsts are very important. So we think about the Baal Shem Tov brings down that the first thought of the day will stay with you the whole day. Whatever you think in the morning, right? Well, halavai, really, as soon as your eyes open, the first thing you really have to think is gratitude. Mode'ani lefanecha, right?
Yeah.
I give thanks to you, God. You have restored my soul. You've put my soul back into my body, right? And of course, the other thing is, it's really a great meditation. The problem is most of us haven't had our coffee yet, so we're not really there, right? Most of us mumble it, and then till we get to the restroom, okay? So, Mode'ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam shehechezarta bi nishmasi b'chemla. I give thanks to you, a living God, who has revived my soul, who's restored my soul. Right? Shehechezarta bi nishmasi. You have restored my soul. You returned my soul to me. B'chemla. Chemla is an unbelievable word. You know what chemla means? They translate it really loosely as pity, but it's not a good word. Chemla is when your son, you're overflowing with love over your children, let's say. The little kids. Not when they grow older and they have attitude. Okay?
They're still sweet.
Oh, they're so sweet. Oh, the chemla is just outpours whatever. They go boo boo ba ba, or whatever they say. It's like, the most unbelievable thing. And just the love is just an overflowing love. So God returns our souls to us in the morning with overflowing love. He kisses each soul and he puts it back to the body. It's so holy, right? And it's so it's not with an attitude like here's your dang soul. Good luck with all that. Okay. Right? We saw what you did yesterday. Well, good luck. No. Because the next words we say, Rabbi emunasecha, if you ever think about it, Rabbi emunasecha means great is your faith. We're saying this to God. Great is your faith. Meaning God has faith in us, right? Such a meditation. God is investing in us. Rabbi emunasecha. And therefore it has to have an influence on us in terms of our attitude. Right? Rabbi emunasecha. And anyways, of course, my dad said that we read last week. You can also add this. I can hardly wait to see the life-enhancing experiences that God is going to bring to me today. You got to say with an energy, right? You got to say with that ding. Create the angels, the energy. Because whatever it is you think the first thoughts of the day, not, I got stinking meetings today, right? You have to have an energy, and that energy is going to stay with you the whole day. So that's the first thoughts of the day. Then we have the first thoughts of the week, is what we have at the top of the page here. We begin our week with the ritual of Havdalah, with wine, spice, and candle. Right? We have to say Havdalah on wine. The rabbis decreed it because it's a demarcation, entering from holy to non-holy. Or when we go from non-holy, right, to Kodesh, to holy, right, which is the Friday night. And when we leave, also, it has to be a demarcation with a cup of wine, because it sticks out. It's like what I think about a lot of times is, let's say if you're in a crowd and, everybody's just talking with each other and you want to really make a connection and, a significant, demarcation, you go a toast. Mm-hmm. And then everybody calls their attention. So it's a calling of attention and a focus. The spice here, the ritual of the spice and the candle are meant to give us focus and energy for our coming week. Now, there's a custom in many synagogues. I didn't see this till years after I was in yeshiva, where the son of the Rosh Yeshiva did a Havdalah. And after he said the first blessing of Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen, and he went, ha, 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 ha. And I was like, I liked it. What's it about? If you go to a Sephardic synagogue, they do it. If you go to Rabbi Yaakovian synagogue, they do it. And you go to my house, I do it. And some places do it. Ashkenaz shuls do not do it. I don't know why. Some, I can't say all, because I haven't been to every Ashkenaz shul, in the world. You don't do it, right? Chabad doesn't do the laugh. Why the laugh? Obviously. Because the beginning of things sets the pace of the whole. Here you're starting the week. What state are you in when you begin your week? You have to instill joy. The laughter is to make sure you get yourself in a joyous state.
What state you're in?
Well, some people are really depressed, and that's why the next thing is that's why you have to smell the spice. Because the neshama yesera, the extra soul, leaves us. Right? The high part of the soul, the whole high, leaves us, and we're in such a gloomy state. Because the Shabbos is gone, and now it's time to go out into the dark work week. Right? And, of course, the reviving of the spirit is the smell. Sense of smell revives the spirit. Actually, the Gemara brings down in Brachos one thing nothing else, that the soul does not get pleasure from anything except the smells. Is the one thing that was not tainted in the Garden of Eden? The sense of smell was not tainted in the Garden of Eden. All the other senses in the Garden of Eden were tainted, because if you look in the verse, it says, and she saw the fruit, and it sounded good what the advice of the serpent was, right? And she touched the fruit, and she ate the fruit. 4 senses were tainted in the sin of the Garden of Eden. The smelling was not tainted. The one thing that is like almost a direct connection to our neshama is through the sense of smell. So therefore it revives that part of us. And then, of course, there's the candle. Okay? So that's, all right? So the spice is to revive us, given the fact that on the Shabbos we got an extra soul, and now the Shabbos is ended. So it too has left us, and we feel somewhat deflated. Now, to look at the reflection of the fingernails, it's a whole nother class. It's a big class. I'm not going to go into it now. About what is the fingernails about. Okay? So simply, what I wrote here, to look at the reflection of our fingernails reminds us of the brilliant reflected energy of Adam and Eve before the sin of the Garden of Eden. And that we need to be reminded to shoot beyond that. Okay, and there's a lot of things that goes into it. We say simply, what are you supposed to do when they make the blessing at Havdalah is Borei Morei Ha'esh. There's so much depth into it. He creates the fires. Borei Morei. It's fires okay? But in any case, the Midrash brings down that Adam, who was expelled from the garden, as some commentaries say, and he was expelled before Shabbat. Some people say it was after Shabbat, but in any case, Adam was sitting in the dark. He was sitting literally in the dark. The sun went down. And Hashem put in his mind intuition to bang two stones together and make fire. Hence, the idea, the concept of intuition, fire, is the light, a different light, a light of intuition. It is. It's more than the spark. But the idea here goes on now. When they say the blessing of a Borei Me'orei Ha'esh, right, who creates the fires, and it has to be dafka, specifically a fire with two wicks. A lot goes into that too, because really it's the male, female, it's connected, okay? The connectedness. Because, in Shabbos, the Friday night, two separate. And then, of course, on Shabbat, on Saturday, Saturday night, right? They have to be joined. Okay? Yes.
Yeah, I remember as a child, especially when I became a teenager, 13 on up. My grandmama used to ask me, "Have you been sparking? Going out and sparking?" Now that was her way of saying, "Have you been going on a date? Have you been dating anybody?"
Well, that's not what I'm talking about.
That's a different kind of spark.
Well, I mean, it's like life. It's like creating.
Okay, I like the terminology though. Okay, it is a good one because it keeps it clean.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's nice. Okay, but let's just keep it to the spark and not get to that flame for your topic. Okay, yeah, don't be messing. Don't mess around. Just keep it the spark and don't let it go any beyond the spark. Now, the idea really here is, of course, when they say the flame, Borei Me'orei Ha'esh. So you're supposed to, according to the Ari, I needed to look it up again, but I'm going to tell you what I've been telling people for years in the class, but I tried to look it up this morning, is you're supposed to, most people have no idea what they're doing. I'll tell you, they go like this, and then, right?
Right.
Really, the bottom line, basic, simplest understanding is you're supposed to if you make a blessing on the flame, you have to derive some kind of benefit from a flame because you're making a blessing on it. You have to derive benefit. So classically, the simple understanding is derive benefit is you have to see the difference between the shininess of your nails to the rough part of your skin. All you have to do is see the difference in the reflection. This is shiny. This is dull. Okay, that's it. Just that. It's simple, right? Instead of like reading something in front of it or whatever it is. So that's the minimum benefit, but there's a much deeper benefit. As we all know, or maybe is that Adam Harishon, the first man, Adam and Eve, their skin was as reflectant as the nails that we have. Don't forget, we're here to be reflections of the infinite light, complete reflections. So Adam and Eve, with their skin, was as reflective as bright, radiant light.
I remember in yeshiva, Rabbi Yitzhak said that the woman is the reflection of the man.
That's one part, and man is a reflection of
God.
yeah.
Rabbi, I heard that their skin was made up out of material like nails, like fingernails.
It's kind of hard to move in
So that's what I
material like
heard.
this. That's what I heard, and the best thing that makes sense to me is it's the luminous. It has the illumination of it, the reflectedness, the shininess, the transparency, but not the exact. I don't think the hardness. The hardness of the nails is for another thing. It's a protection on the edges of the fingers, not against the hammer blow. Okay, because it doesn't protect against the hammer blow. It affords spiritual protection because according to the Ari, we have energy that is constantly flowing through us, from above, through us, and out.
So that would be considered the aura of the halo?
This is kind of different. I can't connect it to the aura of the halo.
Okay.
I don't know the aura of the halo. People,
The aura is
this is
like-
like, I'm going to look at the Ari is not talking about halo or aura, okay?
Emanation. Okay.
There's a light that flows
Right.
from above through our systems,
Right.
and it goes through our hands, out of our hands, back into our hip, and then down to our legs and out through our feet. Now the problem is when it comes out of our hands and it goes out, therefore it is exposed at an early stage. When it goes out the bottom of our feet, geh gesund, on the outer forces. The problem is the outer forces are here and ready to clasp if there is something to grasp on those, on the energy, the light that comes out from our fingertips. And that's why in Judaism you won't see people having long nails. Because if the nails grow too long, that gives the outer forces, the elements of darkness, to grasp on the hands. Okay? And therefore it has all kinds of damaging effects, i.e. really, as one Kabbalist put it to me, it crawls right up through your hands, right back up through your hands and into your brain. Okay?
In Habakkuk, it talks about the hiding of his power is in his hands.
God's power.
The hiding of Hashem's power is in his hands.
More than that. Okay? More than that.
So that's why we do Negelbas in the morning on the hand right away, because the evil forces from the evening, because in the Shema is until like, we're protected till here, not on the hands. So
Exactly.
that's why we do the Negelbas
Yes.
in the morning.
There you go.
Right. Very good. Right. So the idea, though, of course, Adam Harishon, the first man, Adam's skin was fingernails, and then only after the sin did it become dull like this, like snake skin. Okay, and it says God made, Rabbi Meir brings down that when it says God made skins for Adam to dress him in, or he made him a kasanos or a garments of or. Now or is pronounced two ways. Or is pronounced or with an aleph vav resh, which is or light, and then there's ayin vav resh, or skin. Okay, so in other words, it used to be or with an aleph, and then after the sin it became or with an ayin, which means skin. So the idea really is on Saturday night when we look at the reflection, by the way, okay, according to the Ari, thumb has to be in the palm and 4 fingers on the outside the palm and not both hands. He seems to indicate just the right hand only, and you have to see the reflection of all 4 nails according to the Zohar, and the difference between this and that. Okay? Now the idea really here is you have to meditate on it a little bit about what is it about that. First of all, the right is always chesed, kindness. Okay? And you're not supposed to ever expose the palm to the flame. Okay? No, the people go like this and they don't know what they're doing, and you're not supposed to do that. Now some people will do this and turn outer and then see the reflection of the 5. Okay? But I believe the Ari says like this, thumb inside, these fingers on the outside, and see the reflectance of this. Now the idea really expressed is this. And this is what we have to get into, because this is the beginning of the week. This is the energies that we're creating through thoughts, reminding us, focusing our energies where we came from, where we are now, and where we got to go, and beyond. Okay, because we're not just trying to get back to the garden. Was that a song? Get back to the garden? Okay, we're not just trying to get back to the garden. We need to go beyond the garden. But the getting back is one step, because we have to get to that level. So we have to remember that where we came from, where we are, and where we need to go to become that reflected light. What's the goal? We are here to become a full reflection of the light of the infinite through us, through our lives, to all of creation. Everybody. Because everybody is a creation of God, and they're infinite magnitude, infinite expressions of God, and we are supposed to reflect in our lives, through our lives, that infinite expression. Yeah.
It's like when Moshe came down from Sinai. He didn't know that his face was shining and glowing like that. He had to cover his face for a period of time.
All the time. People were freaked out. They looked at his face. Okay, that was for a different reason. His light became like that. But I remind me of the Charlton Heston movie. I think the first time I saw that, he comes down and they go, "Moshe, your face," and he goes, "What? Is there chocolate here? Is there chocolate?" Anyways, yes. Okay, but the reason why Moshe was merited that is because he hid his face at the burning bush. He didn't look at the flames. Okay, but he became a completely different being, but it's also where we're going. Okay? Okay, so anyways, going on. to continue. All right? So that's the beginning of the week, now the beginning of the year. This is why it is the custom in every Jewish home to dip the apple in the honey on Rosh Hashanah. Why? The beginning of the Jewish year. Don't forget, everything goes after the beginning. What you do in the beginning sets the pace for the rest of it. Beginning of the day, beginning of the week, beginning of the month, also Rosh Chodesh. I didn't do Rosh Chodesh here, okay? Rosh Chodesh is a huge thing that people really don't take to with too much depth. Okay, it's Rosh Chodesh, extra davening, they roll their eyes a little bit, got work to do, and really Rosh Chodesh needs to be really, what I want to say, reinstituted. Yeah, for women, sure. Rosh shouldn't do malacha on Rosh Chodesh. It's a party for the women. The women were zocheh to Rosh Chodesh because they didn't sin at the sin of the golden calf, right? Meet and measure for measure, right? So they got to be, a part of that renewal aspect because the moon is always renewing. Thank God that's part of us. Also, Rosh Chodesh has to be also taken as the beginning of the month. What you do sets the pace for the rest of the month. That's why there's special permutations of names of God that you have to meditate on Rosh Chodesh. And now the dipping in the honey on Rosh Hashanah, of course, it is important that we lay a positive foundation for the whole year to come. Just as the ancient Jewish farmer would dedicate his first fruits to Hashem, so it is the Jewish custom to start off the new year only with positive thoughts. They warn very emphatically, don't get angry on Rosh Hashanah, make sure. Because what you do in those 2 days is going to set the pace for the rest of the year, and anger blocks the flow of Shefa. What is Shefa? Blessing of abundance, abundant blessing. In other words, they're spiritual pipes of Shefa that come from the cosmic world into your life, meaning abundance, parnasa, money, right? Finances, health, everything. When a person gets angry, he blocks that, according to Rabbi Nachman. Okay? But really, the idea of dipping the apple in the honey is, and all the other simanim, there's all the whole plate of different other items of food that you eat that have a play on the words, the Hebrew words, and has a play on it, and they have meaning to it, is because you have to instill in you, on the beginning of the year, all of these angels. You're creating these unbelievable, powerful angels that are guiding your year. Dipping the apple in the honey is the most significant that everybody seems to associate with, and you have to go, wow, it's such a sweet year. It's going to be a sweet year. Okay? The idea really is to have the feelings, not just do it and let's move on. Okay, we did that ritual, and it comes just a surface ritual that nobody seems to, it doesn't have the deep spiritual significance that it could, because you're creating constantly these forces. Okay, so that's the beginning of the thoughts. That's the Baal Shem Tov, and that's what the beginnings do. All things go after the beginning. Okay, whatever you think and how you are, so therefore that's an additional thing, an concept that we have to grasp, okay, a tool, okay? Now let's go on to Rabbi Nachman, okay? The Holy Master Rabbi Nachman, when people found out I was writing this book or putting these statements from the wise men together, right? So they couldn't resist but showing me Rabbi Nachman in the Likutei Maharan, that's his classic work, on Torah 193. I didn't do a very good translation, and I see the translation that they did here might be better. I didn't compare. All I know is I'm not a good translator. That's one thing I know. No! Okay, that's how usually they start. No! Exclamation point is in his translation. Okay? That thought has a very great strength, a very great power. So here he says it quite blatant. Okay? And if a person can strengthen and overpower his thought on anything in the world, he can cause to affect that manifestation. Okay? That's my translation. I'm going to read you his. Okay? If a person concentrates and focuses his thoughts on anything in the world, he can make it happen. That's how they translated it. Okay? If a person he has to make yigaber, gvura. The thoughts have to become overpowering. proactive. Strengthen and yigaber, and become dominant. That's more like it. Make his thoughts dominant on anything that's in the world. He's able to go ahead and make that it would be thus. I'm reading it now from the Hebrew because it's greater. Even if a person would strengthen his thoughts that he could get money. He can get money. Okay? If he uses the power of his thoughts, he can even get rich. Okay? The kain b'chol davar, and that's what it is with everything. In other words, the thoughts, once again, are very, very powerful. And now he has his proviso here. What is the proviso? This is only provided that his thoughts will nullify all his feelings. And I put it in the parentheses, feelings of doubt or fear, for example. Here he brings down, provided the thought is with a negation of all his senses. So the Hebrew, Rak shahamachshava tiyeh bebitul kol hahargashot. His thought has to be nullifying all of his hargashot. I asked my wife, because I know what hargashot, and my simple Hebrew is what? Feelings.
Yeah.
Feelings. So I'm trying to meditate and think about this, that the machshava has to nullify all of his feelings.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of feelings? Okay? What kind of feelings? So I wrote here in the parentheses, feelings of doubt or fear, for example. Okay? All of those things, all of other thoughts. Here he writes in the note here, okay, negation of all his senses, which is kind of strange, because senses is like the sense of hearing or seeing, right? Taste, touch. So I'm not kind of clear on that sense, okay? But here he brings understanding. In this regard, Rabbi Nachman teaches elsewhere, human thought has great potential. We'll see it. I'll bring it in later on. When thought is intensely concentrated, it can exert great influence. However, every faculty of mind, both conscious and unconscious, down to the innermost point, must be focused without distraction. That's what he says, okay? To accomplish this, the concentrated thought must spell out every step of the desired result in detail. He does bring this down. In other words, you have to go from step A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E. Okay? In order to get there, you have to use the powers of focus to think of what the steps are from A to Z in terms of that. Okay? A diffused, generalized thought is in the category of an incomplete vessel. This is in, we're going to see this in Rabbi Nachman, Torah 62 and Stichot Aran. An incomplete vessel. In other words, if it's not a focused, concentrated thought, I want this, right? A will for this. So that's called a vessel, but it's incomplete. And it can lead one to error. You can make a mistake if it's diffused, because it allows all kinds of other things in, and it's not a complete thought, and therefore God cannot give bounty to an incomplete vessel. To this, the Rebbe adds here that for the power of thought to exercise such great influence, its concentration has to be complete, undistracted by and detached from all physical senses. So here he says, you can't let what your eyes see or your ears hear or whatever else dictates to you, whatever your senses will feed back to your brain that this can't happen, you have to nullify them. Okay? So it's like one of these, of course, you're accomplishing and going beyond what you could your normal capacity is. Okay? You have to free your mind, okay, in a certain sense, to know that you can go beyond it. Whatever it is going on out there. Okay? The will can overcome anything. Okay? And usually, as we know, that the bigger the obstacle, the more holier, the better it is, actually. And really, some people will look at the obstacle as being, some people will say, if you get a holy thought to do something. So obviously what happens is, Rabbi Nachman brings down, instantly is created the obstacle. Your mind will most likely figure it out, right? the defense or whatever it is, because you're calculating in your mind. So you'll see the obstacle. It'll be a mountain or whatever. And then you'll say, okay, I guess it's meant to be. That it's not, you make your little effort, right? You get stopped. Okay. And now that's the wimp. Okay? The wimp will say, okay, it's meant to be. But really, Rabbi Nachman says, no. The obstacle is there for you to focus your will more and more and more. And you should appreciate and thank God for the obstacle. Thank you, God, for this obstacle. Right? Because why? It's just like if, let's say, I bring this parable all the time. Let's say here you got kids here. You're in the shul and you're the candy man in the synagogue, and you're giving out the candies, and then you realize that there was one candy in there that was a special candy, right? And you see it, and they all see all the candies, and you grab one out and you go hold it behind you. No, that's not for you. Here, you guys get to pick you one of these, and they're going no. What's behind the back? We don't want any of this. None of this is good. We want what's behind the back, right? So obviously it's supposed to entice you for more. Okay, that's the big thing. You got to get out of the comfort zone. A lot of times, right? We're creatures of comfort. We like to stay in the comfort zone and go beyond the comfort zone. So the idea really here is you have to use your mind to go out of the comfort zone. So you have to actually, you have to love the obstacle. You have to want the obstacle. You have to appreciate the obstacle. You have to say, bring it on. I love it. And, and then you'll see once a person has trains himself in his mind, right, to take it on. So he ends up experiencing himself to go beyond what his normal capacities were before. So, but looking at the English, hargashot means feelings, right? Feelings are very powerful, right? They go very deep, right? So the idea here is the mind basically has to dictate to the feelings. You can't let the feelings dictate to the mind. A lot of times the feelings dictate what the mind should think, right? So the thing is, no, you have to have the mind has to overpower, nullify any feelings of fear, any feelings of fear of pain, or any feelings of doubt, or any feelings whatsoever. You have to be able to nullify that, okay? So now he goes on to something really powerful here, okay? So he says, thought is so powerful to the degree that it is possible to hand over one's soul literally with a thought. What's he referring to? Okay? Here it's not in my note here. Where's note 12? I don't see a 12 anywhere here.
Yeah, but one must keep in mind.
Yeah, I guess it was supposed to be 1.
This 1 is supposed to be a 12. Is that what you're saying?
I'm thinking, one must keep in mind the idea that placebos work for some people. And also the evidence of hypnosis that people actually form blisters when told something scalding touched their skin, when it's actually nothing. We know this. My dad used to do hypnosis classes back in the day, right? Where he would saw it, he would say, we just touching a hot, what do you call it, an amber to your skin, and blisters would actually come. Okay? All kinds of things. As we know, hypnosis, the mind really, in a certain sense, doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real. As we know that by placebos, how much the mind overpowers it. There's a lot of people who write a lot of books and who overcome many obstacles through this, okay? I know one case of a guy who had, I think it was kidney cancer, and the doctor says, okay, we got a new drug here, take this, and he took it, it was placebo, and the guy got cured. And the guy found out it was placebo with sugar pills, and then he came back. And then what happened was, and he says, okay, you're right, those were here, but here's the real new drug. And then it went away. And then he found out again, and it came back. And then he passed away, okay? Because you can't pull him on a fast one, right? You got to really know, of course. And then there's the idea of my mom, of my father, and what he went through with the power of his mind, just looking to God for peace of mind. He had a brain tumor, and of course it was gone, okay? So there's a lot that goes into the power of our thoughts. A lot goes into it, okay? So here he goes, though, what it can do actually in our practice, daily practice, if you should reach such a level, he says you have to be very careful with this rule. Because, of course, we only want to use this rule for holiness, not to get money. Okay? All of the principles of the mind that we do discover, and even the science will tell you, right? We only want to use it for holy purposes and to bring the world to a better place, right? Intention is a lot. And here the intention is, of course, he's referring to is the Shema. When a person says the Shema, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, according to the Arizal, and a person has to imagine that he is being thrown into a blazing fire and dying, al Kiddush Hashem, for the sanctification of God's name. Because there's three things that a Jew would rather die than commit. Three sins, cardinal sins, right? Murder, idolatry, and incest, right? So a person, rather than committing these three sins, it's in our default program. There's nothing you can do that would stop it. If the situation should come up, even though you think now you're telling me I'm willing to die, that if I don't have my cup of coffee, I'm going to die in the morning, right? Right? If I don't get this, what are you telling me that there's inside me, there's this force that's not only the force is willing to, but the soul's biggest desire. If you really tap into the biggest taiva, the biggest desire of the soul, not to hold anything back, that if it was my life, I'm lovingly willing to give it up. And when we say the Shema, actually, you have to imagine every time that is happening to you. The simple understanding, according to the Seitel Katan of the Noam Elimelech, you have to imagine that there's a blazing fire in front of you, and that you're willing to throw yourself in to be burned rather than commit idolatry. To die al Kiddush Hashem, for the sanctification of God's name. Okay? Now, Rabbi Akiva took it a little step further. Okay? Let's read here. So he says, thought is very powerful to the degree that it is possible to hand over one's soul literally upon a thought, with a thought. That is, he will feel the pain of death. That's referring to the Shema. When a person will accept upon himself in his consciousness that he is already willing to die for the sake of sanctifying the name of God, with whatever death that will be decreed upon him, it should be he can, okay? He can actually bring about his own demise, his own death, if he gets too into it in thought. So he's telling you got to watch out with this idea. You got to watch out with this concept, guys. Don't go overboard. Don't do this at home. No, do it at home, but watch out. You got to know this, okay? Because you can actually take it to the degree where a person can die. Okay, it is possible to strengthen and make the thought so powerful that at the time that the person accepts in his thoughts that he's willing to die for Kiddush Hashem, that means sanctification for the name, then he will feel the pain of death literally. And this is what Rabbi Akiva said, all my life I was troubled concerning this verse, because it says in the verse, after we say the Shema, and at the Daled, you have to realize, you have to unbelievable. If you're looking also in the Sefer Tanya, chapter 47, right? It's like God is bringing you out of the servitude of Egypt every day. In other words, you're having an out-of-body experience. You are literally putting yourself in the out-of-body experience at that moment. When you say Echad, and you got to elongate the Daled, you know how to do that, right? You touch the tongue to where your teeth meet the roof of your mouth. You got to touch it right there. Echad. You got to elongate the Daled. Some people move their head in 4 directions. That's another higher level. But the idea of Echad, that your soul is going out of your body, okay? You're actually becoming totally free. You're psyched to the mostly unbelievable point. Because don't forget the bracha that you say before Shema Yisrael. You're saying, Baruch atah Hashem, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Blessed are you, God, who loves His people Israel. There's an unbelievable experience of love at that moment. The love is so great that you feel God's love so much, Shema Yisrael, that you're so dedicated to the point where, yes, I'm willing. That's the inner taiva desire of the soul. If you would ever hook into it, right? On Shabbos maybe you might get a little glimpse of it, that the soul is just Now you have to think about this, okay? We'll get to that in a second. Let's just go on here. This is what Rabbi Akiva said, all my life I was troubled concerning the verse to love Hashem with all your soul. Because it says right after you say the Shema, and you say Baruch Shem, you say, V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavecha. You have to love Hashem your God with all of your hearts, means your evil inclination and your good inclination. B'chol nafshecha, with all your soul. That means even if He's going to take your life, you love Hashem, even if He's going to take your life. Uv'chol me'odecha, and if He's going to take your money. With all your money. Everything. Because some people, their money, Jack Benny. I'm thinking. Okay? So he says, all my life I was troubled concerning this verse, to love Hashem with all your soul. When, he would say, when will this mitzvah come to my hands that I may fulfill it? All his life. When am I going to be able to fulfill this? When? Yearning. When am I going to do it? When? Can you imagine living a life like that? You have to ask yourself right now, what do your contemplations have to be about what God is in order to be willing to do that with love? Just think, you don't have to answer the question, but just for a moment, what do your perceptions and contemplations have to be so lovingly willing and happily willing to do that? What is your thoughts? What is your contemplations to be able to be on that level? Okay, that is the perception. That is in our souls, on a soul level. And now this, okay, we know how Rabbi Akiva died, right? Does anybody know how Rabbi Akiva died? Some people know, right? They raked his flesh off his body with iron combs. He was hanging there, and they had iron combs raking the flesh off his body. Yeah. And he was loving every minute of it. Some people do say that he was not experiencing pain at that moment because he is on a higher level of pleasure going, this is the greatest thing that I could ever do. I'm finally realizing this is my dream. This has been my life's dream. Because the students were there witnessing, going, Rebbe, Ad Khan, until this. And this is what he said to them. He says, all my life I was dreaming about this. Okay? When am I going to be able to do this? Not with when, with a yearning. And now this means at the time of the recital of the Shema, as we know, Rabbi Akiva did die by the echad of the Shema. That Rabbi Akiva accepted upon himself the 4 death penalties.
Can I ask you about the sentence just before that?
Yeah.
I'm just a little confused. You say, this is what Rabbi Akiva said. All my life I was troubled concerning this verse. The verse is...
To love Hashem with all your soul.
Is that one verse?
No, actually that's just part of a verse.
It's the first of 3.
No, the whole verse is... The whole verse is, you'll love Hashem with all of your...
soul, with all
of your heart,
right.
With all your soul, and with all your money. Might. But
right.
Might means money.
Or
might means everything that he measures out to you.
When will this mitzvah come to my hands that I may fulfill it is not part of that verse.
No,
correct?
That was his question. All my life I was troubled concerning this verse, to love Hashem with all your soul. Okay. And he is continuing with his question. What was troubling him with this verse? When will this mitzvah come to my hands that I may fulfill it? That was that's not part of the verse. That's his thought,
thinking.
His question concerning.
As an editor right now.
Got it. Good. I'm glad. Good. Yes. Terrible writing.
So
Thank you.
And then you have and now. So that's his
and
next
he's
thought.
still going.
That's
And
not
yes,
verse.
it's all.
That's his thought.
This is what he's saying.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Let me see how he says it. All my days I was anguished over this verse. When will I have the chance to fulfill it? So now, ... Yeah, he doesn't do it here, sadly. Okay, and now it should be, in other words, it should end right there, and now. 1 second. And now, ... like what I wrote down, end of quote. Because the now meaning, now I'm able to fulfill this. All my life I yearned to fulfill this. I've been contemplating it, thinking about it my whole life. And now I'm able to fulfill it. Okay? This means at the time of the recital of the Shema, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one, meaning He's all there is, that Rabbi Akiva accepted upon himself the 4 death penalties, and the 4 death penalties are skila, sreifa, hereg, v'henek. There are actually really 6, 2 that I added myself personally. Okay, the 4 judicial death penalties are stoning, right? Skila, sreifa, burning, hereg, which is strangulation, and henek, which is decapitation, and then there's death by cantorial, I added, and there's death by staff meeting also. Just kidding. Sorry, sometimes when I go into synagogues, on one letter, I'm like going, come on, man. I'm going, I am now fulfilling the mitzvah of not to kill. I am now fulfilling the mitzvah do not kill. I'm now fulfilling... Okay, because I'm dying sometimes in synagogue. Sorry about that. And then death by staff meeting for sure, right? Staff meeting is, when can we get different pencils? These pencils seem to break too fast, right? And then 5 hours on discussing a pencil, right? Which is not pertinent to you at all. Okay, that's definitely a death penalty. Okay, right? I'm sorry, a little joke. And there's other ones too, but let's not get there.
Where your thoughts are is where you're at.
I'm trying not to get it, avoid all staff meetings, okay? Most staff meetings can take 15 minutes and ends up drawing for 2 hours, okay? Because, well, what are we doing about the new coffee machine? It breaks sometimes. How much does it break? What kind of coffee? Well, the filters. You get into details on, okay. You can see where I'm coming from. Yes, I've been in those. Okay, let's get back here. So when a person strengthens his thoughts in handing over his soul, he is actually able to die from the pain of the very death that he was contemplating. Now, this is a high level, but notice how Rabbi Nachman wants to take you. Thoughts are so powerful, you can actually die by your own thought if you were to get there. Now, halavai, we would get there, but, he wants to, tell you that you can even do this. A person could give himself a heart attack, right? So, this is because there is no difference between actual death to the pain felt from the death in his mind. Okay? In other words, you can get there to such a koch tziyur. Koch tziyur is a formation of your mind and senses. You could actually get to that place. Okay? Therefore, a person must hold himself back and distance himself to remain there in the time that he needs, right? That it is close to go to his soul going out, but don't actually let your soul go out. Close, but don't get there. Okay? This is so that he does not actually die before his time, God forbid. Okay? So don't cause your own untimely death. Okay? Okay? So here, that's one. How are we doing? A little bit more here. Let's finish
this. Does this 12 go with
I think so.
1 up in the other paragraph?
No, I think this 12 goes exactly with that paragraph there.
What,
I think it should be a 12. I think the note should...
God forbid. Where is the 12 that corresponds to 12?
It's not. It's a 1. It should be a 12.
I think it should be a 1.
I'm asking. Is
Yeah.
the 1
Yes, it's 1.
to be a 12?
It's 1.
Okay.
On the second line.
So this should be a 1.
Yes, it should be a 1. I don't know why it's a 2. It's a 12.
Well, it should be a 14 because you have...
Now listen to
13
this.
and you have 14.
Listen to this one. Are you ready? I want to finish this just a little bit. This is so amazing, this part now. Okay? It's fantastic. Conversation. This is from Sichot Aran. Conversations with Rabbi Nachman that Rabbi Nosson had with Rabbi Nachman, and he wrote down the conversations, the very deep, relevant wisdom from Rabbi Nachman. When studying subjects dealing with tragedy like the laws of mourning, do not delve into it too deeply. Okay? In other words, if you're studying and you want to get into the laws of mourning in the Shulchan Aruch, don't delve. Don't do Ian. Don't study deeply. One should not probe too deeply in these matters, for our thoughts have great power. Therefore, these subjects should be covered as rapidly as possible. You got to skim, baby, skim. We have certain chapters in the Kabbalah. The chapters concerning the shattering of the vessels, this primordial cataclysmic event that happened, the death of the kings. We don't even actually use the word of death when we're actually reading those passages. And these chapters that deal with these, when God made and destroyed these 7 worlds, we can only learn it in the month of Nisan. Because in the month of Nisan, there's no tachanun, the supplication prayer is not said. Or you can learn it on Shabbos evening after midnight only. You cannot learn it any other time. Okay? Because why? It brings about things. And I know that from my own case personally. Okay? You learn this stuff that has to do with death and mourning. It's going to have an effect because if it dwells in your mind, it has that creational aspect. It's like an oven. Your mind is like an oven. It cooks. It doesn't care what you put into it. You can put dirt. You can put cake. It's going to cook. You plant a seed. It's going to cook. Whatever that seed is, you plant corn. You get corn. Wheat. You get wheat. You plant this. You get this. So he says skim fast because the thought has great power. Okay, let's just go a little bit more. Conversation 46. Guard your thoughts carefully, for thought can literally create a living thing. I don't know what that means. We know a living thing is an angel. But I don't know if that's what he means. And I don't have a note 14 here that I wrote here. I can't. Oh, such as angels. Oh, yeah, thank you. I wrote my own note. But I don't think that's what he meant. Okay? Can create a living thing.
A living situation.
That's not what he's saying.
I think he's talking about the energies.
It could be, but like I say, there's no Perush here. I didn't see a Perush. I can ask one of the big Breslov rabbis and see what they say. I tried to look into some other commentaries, and it wasn't. I didn't get it. But yeah, if you understand it as an energy, okay. The higher the faculty, the farther it can reach. This is kind of bizarre here, and I do have a question. If you can answer it, I'd like to hear an answer. The higher the faculty, the farther it can reach. You can kick something with your foot, but throw it higher with your hand. Now, some people beg to differ, especially these days with football, okay? Because a person can kick a ball much farther than he can throw with his hand, I believe. Maybe you can say, that's my question really, is maybe there's the accuracy maybe is not as good. With the hand could be more accurate. Okay, so maybe with a greater accuracy, the hand reaches farther than the foot. In any case, look how he goes, the gist of what he says later on. You can still reach farther with your voice, calling out to a person very far away. Hey! So voice can reach farther than hand or foot. Hearing reaches yet further, the sense of hearing. For you can hear sounds like gunfire from a very great distance, the airplane flying at 30,000 feet. Your sight reaches even farther, seeing things in the sky, very far away, stars, right? The higher the faculty, the farther it can reach. Highest of all of them is the mind, which can penetrate the loftiest heights. Therefore, you must safeguard your mind very well, okay? Because it has great reaching ability. All dimensions are in the mind because it reaches very far. We talked about this before. Right now, you can imagine yourself being on the beach at Waikiki, drinking a margarita in the great breeze under an umbrella, watching the surf, right? And then in another second, you can go ahead and put yourself standing on the moon. And then in another second later, you could put yourself at Mount Sinai thousands of years ago. The mind, wherever the mind goes, that's where you go, right? What's where you are, right? So the mind is an unbelievable grasp in terms of time, space, and time. So therefore, since it has such great reaching abilities, wow, imagine what you could create, okay? Let's go on the next one. I want to finish this chapter, so B'ezrat Hashem, next week we can start the next chapter. Human thought has tremendous potential, for thought can bring about many things, even inflation. Thank you very much. I think they did that with Rabbi Nachman one year. There was an inflation. They said something about that, and he said, "Oh, quiet!" And then all of a sudden there was inflation that year. Okay. When thought is intensely concentrated, it can exert profound influence. Even every faculty of the mind, both conscious and unconscious, down to the innermost point, must be focused without distraction. This is kind of what we said in the beginning of the class. When many people do this, this we get to later on in chapter 6 or 7, I think. When many people do this, their thoughts can actually force something to take place. Okay, and notice I put in the note there 15. Remember the golden watch incident in the introduction? I don't think I brought this to you. Maybe I mentioned it. That Rabbi Chaim Voloshin was with his students. He had a special group of students, and he was talking about the level of emunah, which means the level of belief. What you believe, you can bring about. And one guy says, "Okay, Rabbi, golden watch, bring it now." And then those times, you're talking about a few hundred years ago, watches you can't even go get at a local Walmart. Okay, right? There wasn't a local Walmart. You can get a $10 watch. Watches were something of very precious nature. And this guy said a gold watch, and Chaim Voloshin says, "You're on, buddy boy. We're doing this." So they're doing exercises and concentrating and focusing their thoughts intensely. And all of a sudden, 2 o'clock in the morning, a guy walks in and he says, "Rabbi, I come from a very rich family. And I was drafted into the army. My dad, he paid the doctor, and who should have written me off as an exemption, but he wrote the wrong guy off. He wrote the other guy off as an exemption, and I didn't get the exemption. I'm being drafted in the army. I'm going right now. I need you to hold this watch for me." And he hands him a gold watch. And the rabbi says, whoa. I don't know where you're going or where you're going to be. I can't. You know something? They're going to steal it from me for sure once I go in. Better I give it to you. And he gave him the watch and left. 2 a.m. in the morning, the golden watch appears. Go figure. Okay? To accomplish this, the concentrated thought must spell out every step of the desired result in detail. Okay? So that's a whole nother exercise. We're going to have to make a little workbook here, right? What's the step, what do you want? And like one A, B, C, D, E. You got to write it out. You got to think it through. However, a diffused generalized thought is like an incomplete vessel, like what we said before, okay? I spoke about that a little bit before. Interesting note about incomplete vessels or here, look at the note here. In the Chulin 25a, it speaks about where complete vessels, whether wood or metal, can contract uncleanliness. Only when they are considered completed. And they will not contract uncleanliness if they are incomplete. That's an interesting thing. A vessel is only a vessel. In other words, it's a vessel if it can contract uncleanliness. If it's incomplete, it cannot contract uncleanliness. Well, why would that be a good thing? No, because the sign is, wherever there's light, there is the potential for darkness. If there is no potential for darkness, you can guarantee there's no light. Got it? Okay? So you like it when there's a potential for darkness. That means a complete vessel. Okay? Where am I? Okay. However, a diffused generalized thought is like an incomplete vessel. Such an incomplete mental vessel can lead one to err, and this is what happened to Nevat, who saw fire emerging from his circumcision and thought that he would be king. So you can also, and obviously he wasn't king. He didn't end up being king. He was a bad boy. Okay? He rebelled against King David, right? He and Nebat being identified with Sheba, the son of Bichri. It was actually his son Yeravam who became king. Okay. So in any case, you can focus on something so wrongly that it becomes true. Go ask the Palestinians like that. Okay. You say a lie so many times, right? You have to be careful though. Because usually what happens is like what happened with Bilam. He wanted to go curse the Jewish people. But what happened when he came time to open up his mouth, so brachas came out, because God really controls in the end what is going to be the absolute expression at the end. And Bilam, he could have come out on top. He could have said, no, I'm not going to curse the Jewish people. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go and bless them. And it would have been a great sanctification of God's name. Instead, it was a complete embarrassment for him. Go home, buddy boy, embarrassed and broken. Okay, for example, the Shulchan Aruch Code of Jewish Law, you can calculate the 4 sections of the Shulchan Aruch. Oh, this is one thing he gave a great example. Right, there's the Code of Jewish Law. He says you can calculate the 4 sections of the Shulchan Aruch. You can calculate that if you study 5 pages a day, you'll finish all 4 sections in a year. Picture in your mind exactly how you'll go about this course of study. Concentrate so strongly that you are completely focused on this thought. If your desire is strong and your concentration intense enough, you will succeed. I think Rabbi Nassan did that. He actually focused, and 4 pages a day, and he finished the entire code of Jewish law, lots of volumes, like that whole shelf there, in 1 year, okay? Intensely. So in other words, a person can do it. It's always okay, it's in the mind. So here we have actual sources here from Rabbi Nachman that here our consciousness does create our reality. And you have to be very careful because look at how huge our thoughts are, where they extend, and watch out for all the negative parts and negative things because you got to stay away from them and keep yourself focused. It's about the focused. And we did a will unification, I think, a few classes ago. That will unification is one of those things that you can do to constantly you have to unify your higher soul with your lower soul, because the lower soul wants the chocolate now, and the higher soul is maybe later. Okay? So you got to unify them. Okay?
It's like an athlete or a musician.
Okay, we'll stop now.
An athlete or a musician